What's up, everybody? Hobby with Cage. I try not to make content without there being a reason to make the content. When every Tom, Jeff, and Alex has already made a video about it, you usually won't see me make a video unless I have something different to say, a different take, a different spin, a different way of looking at it. I'll try to keep this one short because you've already seen the video at issue. You've already probably been talked at ad nauseum about this. And what's funny is I really did think that I would get through this news cycle of the BackYard breaks debacle without making a video about it. Got a lot of messages from a lot of people asking me where's my content on it. Try to ignore that. So what do you need? It seems pretty self-explanatory. It's horrid. What do you need me to chime in on it for? What's funny is the responses I got, which I won't bore you with. Talk about unified voices, talk about, what this means. It wasn't until this morning that I actually decided that I was going to make this short video, my thoughts about BackYard. And it's funny because I know the guys, and you've seen content made by a million different talking heads, literal talking heads. Sometimes my little head is a talking head also. But I've met Grant. I've met the Telfords. I've met a lot of people who are at BackYard. BackYard's a big company. And, part of me wanted to take that angle and humanize BackYard. And I think when it's all said and done, that is where I will go with this. But it won't be the way you think. I'll start off by saying I've had, Grant and Nick, they were on the show. We've had them come on, talk about their origins, the toothpaste selling, and how they got into BackYard break and the whole deal. I've spent time with them in person. I've seen them be generous to kids. I've seen them be generous to their employees. I've seen a side that obviously not a lot of people are showing now. Because right now you see the side that, gets clicks and gets views and gets the craziness, But what's funny about it is I'm not going to humanize those guys any more than I just did. I'm not going to, talk about good things because everything that was done up to now is irrelevant. I'm not going to put the video in here for a bunch of reasons, mostly because I'm old, not tech savvy, and don't know how to do that. You've probably seen it already, and if you haven't, and you've been, living under a rock, you don't know the 1 minute clip that I'm talking about, you can find it. It's everywhere. Don't listen to it with your daughter. What's interesting is I've had a lot of people send me messages saying that it was a joke, saying that this is just his shtick, and that I should try to make content about how there's different strokes for different folks, and the hobby is no different. And whatnot in the live selling space is similar to the entertainment business. It's similar to what's going on in television and movies, and that, when you pay your Verizon Fios bill, you get 1,000 channels. And if you want to watch Sesame Street, you can watch Sesame Street. You want to watch political channels, you can. You want to watch the weather, the golf channel, the news. You want to stay up late and watch Cinemax. That's a certain different type of content that's out there. Podcasts are the same way. We've had shock jocks for a long time, Howard Stern, Joe Rogan, people saying, interesting things and pandering to their audience. And I'm sure there's a conversation to be had about the normal antics of BackYard, the skits, and you name it, and how they pander to their audience, that their audience knows what they're getting. But again, you're not going to hear me defend that. What you'll hear from me is this. And again, I'll try to keep it short. I'm already failing at that mission. A lot of people talk about, hey, I'm a girl dad, so I'm going to say this. I am, but that's irrelevant. It really is. Every man, woman, and child should have a problem with what was said. Whether you have a daughter, a son, a dog, or you plan to live alone for the rest of your life. No place for it in the hobby, no place for it in civilized society. It's sad. And I have to apologize because what's funny about it is nothing. What's sad about it is because I am a girl dad, I took the opportunity to play the clip for my daughter. And said, after it was done, what do you think? She sat silent for a minute, and her immediate reaction was that someone should chop off this guy's manhood. She didn't use that word. I said, interesting reaction. Why? He says, you have that video on your phone. That means that in 30 seconds, I can find it. It's on the internet. It's somewhere and it exists forever. And I explained to her that this was a young man who did not have a daughter. It was a hypothetical scenario. And my daughter said to me, one day he might. And think about her. Because if you can find this video, Dad, and I can find this video, then one day she might as well. And play a video of her dad talking about her. And would she be a disappointment if she didn't have the endowments that her dad wished that she did? But then more importantly, my daughter said, hey, Dad, if you can find this and I can find this and his daughter can find this one day, so can her friends. So can the kids she's in school with. This is something that she'll now have to live with. And it's a very specific reaction. It's not one that I had thought about. And it's obviously only a part of what makes this miserable, what makes this just a horrible, ridiculous thing that was said. To me, it was eye-opening. I said to my daughter, I said, it's an interesting reaction. She said, well, you have thousands of clips on the internet. And of course, I immediately was, I would never say this. She says, yeah, but what if you did? What if you did because it made you money? What if you did even though you didn't mean it? What if you did because you were trying to sell breaks and you were trying to get paid and you were just trying to pander to your audience? It doesn't matter. Think of how I would feel hearing you say that. And then think about how every girl feels hearing it. Think about how every woman hears. Think about how a lot of men have reacted in this space. People with wives, people with daughters, people with neighbors, people who know a woman. Because whether you want to admit it or not, this is not the friendliest, safest space, the most inclusive and the most welcoming space for women. It's been a male-dominated space for as long as I've been involved, just walking to a card show. And while there are some small efforts made for inclusivity, something like this just crushes them all. The last 2 years, anything that's been done to try to welcome women into the space, to try to be inclusive, to try to, make sure that anybody who wants to be in the space feels welcome, feels like it's a space for them, is just destroyed by this. And anybody who doesn't see that is missing the big picture. I didn't realize that until my daughter opened my eyes. So for that, I apologize. I apologize to everybody out there for my silence on the issue, and I apologize to everybody out there who now feels that this space is not a space for them. Because I don't speak like that. 99.9% of the space doesn't speak like that or think like that. 99.9% of the space wants it to be open to everyone, wants it to be a safe space for everyone, wants all walks of life here. But ultimately, it doesn't matter because that 0.01% is now the loudest voice. It's now what's being played over and over again. It's part of the reason I didn't want to talk about this, because it's still adding fuel to the fire. It's still keeping this out in the front. It's keeping it in the news. As I said, it's keeping BackYard on the front page. And as long as it's there, it's all people are going to talk about. And it's part of the problem, right? Why I didn't want to continue to give fuel to the fire, why I didn't want it to keep spreading. But you kind of have to comment on it, don't you? Because just as that video will live, so will this. And to anybody who is hearing this, share it with anyone who does not feel as comfortable in this space as they did last week before this video came out. Share a voice saying, please come back. What was said in that video does not speak for me. It does not speak for us. It does not speak for the hobby. It speaks for one misguided individual, who I'll get to in a second. But for the rest of us, on his behalf, we apologize to you for making you feel like this is a space that you're not welcome in, because you are. That's to you, my daughter, who one day may want to join a hobby or a workforce or a club or a school or anything where someone's voice is as stupid as the one that we heard last week. In advance for that, I apologize to you. And that's a lot of apologies. And that'll conclude here where I want to go. I don't do PR. I don't do press for people. I don't do press for companies. Like I said, I know the BackYard guys. I know, met these guys personally. I know the Whatnot teams. I've worked with them. I've been on Whatnot. All of them are good people. But there's something that I would be doing here if I were them. From a PR standpoint, from a get out in front of this standpoint. Look how easy it was for me to apologize. And I hope as you're watching this, you feel like it's sincere, because it is. And people know when an apology is sincere. They know when you're just throwing some paint on top of another thing. Whatnot should stand with BackYard and apologize together. Because Whatnot is guilty of the same thing I was, and that's just being quiet for too long and not dealing with this head on. And Grant should just apologize to your unborn daughter. And think about that for a second. Think about how you were trying to get some laughs. You were just doing what you were doing, but one day you may actually have a daughter. And think about what she will think when she finds that video. When her friends find it. When people who aren't her friends find it. And then after you've apologized to the unborn daughter who may find this one day, who will find this one day, apologize to all the daughters. Apologize to all the moms. Apologize to all the dads. Apologize to everyone for making them feel like this space is not a space for them. I mean it. That would be my advice. That's my take on this. You guys know I have sponsors. This is not sponsored by anybody but me and my daughter. I apologize to you again for keeping this in the news, keeping this on the front page, because it doesn't belong there. It needs no more oxygen. I do ask that you share this with somebody who has reached out to you and felt like they were pushed aside by this, felt like this isn't a space for them. Have them reach out to me so I can make sure they know that it is. That's it. I will not speak about this again. Take care, everybody.